Aphids, the silent green army that multiplies without anyone noticing. Imagine turning over one of your plant's leaves and finding an entire colony of tiny green, black, or even orange insects clinging to the underside. They're all crowded together, barely moving. Those are aphids. They measure less than half a centimeter long, have soft bodies, and one telltale habit. They gather on new shoots in the undersides of leaves because the plant tissue there is softer and much easier to pierce. Now here's the disgusting part. Aphids feed by sucking the plant's sap through a tiny straw-like mouthpart. As they feed, they excrete a sticky, sugary substance called honeydew. This residue coats the leaves and attracts ants, which literally farm aphids like livestock, protecting them from predators in exchange for the sugary liquid. Getting rid of them is surprisingly simple. Start by spraying the plant with a strong jet of water to knock most of the colony off. Then apply a mixture of mild liquid soap or natural Castile soap diluted in water, spraying it directly onto the insects, making sure to thoroughly cover the undersides of the leaves where they hide. And if this one is easy to spot with the naked eye, the next pest hides so well that it looks like part of the plant itself. Mealybugs, the pest that disguises itself as bark. Imagine running your finger along your plant stem and feeling a small, hard bump, brownish or gray, that looks just like a natural imperfection in the bark. But when you try to scrape it off, a sticky liquid comes out. That's a scale insect. Its disguise is so convincing that many people live with an infestation for months without ever realizing it. Scale insects protect themselves with a hard, waxy shell that perfectly mimics the texture of bark or stems. Beneath this protective armor, the insect spends almost its entire life motionless, continuously feeding by sucking the plant's sap. And here's the ironic part. Because of that protective shell, scale insects are resistant to most common insecticides, since the chemicals simply can't penetrate the waxy coating. The most effective way to get rid of them is to start with physical removal before using any treatment. Dip a cotton swab in isopropyl alcohol and gently apply it directly to each insect, one by one. The alcohol quickly dissolves the protective wax. After removing as many as you can see, spray the plant weekly with diluted neem oil, which helps smother eggs and young nymphs before they develop their protective shells. Spider mites, the enemy you only notice when your plant is already dying. Imagine noticing that your plant's leaves have started developing tiny yellow specks. Then they begin to look dull, dusty, and within a few days, a fine, almost invisible web appears around the new shoots. It's not a fungus, it's a spider mite. Measuring less than half a millimeter, it's nearly impossible to see without a magnifying glass, which is exactly why most people don't realize they have an infestation until it's already severe. Spider mites thrive in hot, dry conditions, the exact opposite of fungi, which prefer moisture. They pierce individual leaf cells and suck out their contents, leaving behind a speckled, faded appearance as if the plant were slowly losing its color. In heavy infestations, they spin delicate webs between stems and leaves that resemble miniature spider webs. To get rid of them, increasing the humidity around the plant is one of the most effective first steps, since spider mites don't survive well in moist environments. Mist the leaves regularly and apply diluted neem oil or insecticidal soap, making sure to thoroughly coat the undersides of the leaves, where these tiny pests tend to gather. Caterpillars, the hungry mouths that can strip a plant overnight. Imagine leaving home in the morning, with your plant covered in healthy leaves, only to come back that evening and find irregular holes, chewed edges, or even an entire branch completely stripped bare. That's usually the work of a caterpillar. Unlike the other pests on this list, which slowly feed by sucking sap, caterpillars chew directly through plant tissue. Their appetite is astonishing. Some species can consume an amount of leaves equal to their own body weight every single day. A caterpillar is the larval stage of a moth or butterfly, and that enormous appetite has a purpose. It needs to store enough energy to transform into a pupa and eventually emerge as an adult. In other words, eating constantly isn't just a habit. It's an essential part of its biological development. The most effective way to remove caterpillars from household plants is by hand-picking them at night with the help of a flashlight when they come out to feed and are much easier to spot. For larger infestations, Bacillus thuringiensis, BT, is an excellent option. This naturally occurring bacterium targets only the digestive system of caterpillars, making it safe for plants, pets, wildlife, and people. Once ingested, it causes the caterpillars to stop feeding within just a few hours, preventing further damage to your plants. Thrips, the nearly invisible insect that scars your plant from the inside out. Imagine taking a closer look at your plant's leaves or flower petals, and noticing silvery, almost metallic streaks covered with tiny black specks, as if someone had scratched the surface with a fine needle. That's a classic sign of thrips. These insects are tiny, slender, and resemble little black or yellowish threads less than 2 millimeters long. They're so small that most people notice the damage long before they ever spot the insects themselves. Unlike caterpillars, which chew away chunks of leaves, thrips have specialized mouth parts that scrape the surface of the plant and then suck up the sap that leaks from the damaged cells. Those silvery patches are actually areas where the plant tissue has been emptied, cell by cell, while the tiny black dots are the insects' droppings left behind on the leaves. What makes thrips especially difficult to control is their behavior. They hide deep inside unopened buds, young shoots, and flower buds, where they're well protected from ordinary surface sprays. To control them, blue sticky traps are generally more effective than yellow ones because thrips are particularly attracted to the color blue. These traps help reduce the adult population, while also making it easier to monitor the infestation. For better control, combine them with diluted neem oil, spraying it directly onto new shoots and unopened flower buds every 5 days until the infestation is under control. Whiteflies, a cloud that takes off the moment you get close. Imagine walking up to your plant to water it, and suddenly a cloud of tiny white specks bursts into the air. They circle around for a few seconds before settling back onto the leaves. That's a whitefly, and this behavior alone is one of the most reliable ways to identify it. No other common plant pest takes off in a swarm like this when disturbed. Whiteflies are tiny insects that resemble miniature moths, with bodies covered in a white, waxy powder. They live on the undersides of leaves where they lay their eggs. Like aphids, they feed by sucking the plant's sap and produce a sticky, sugary substance called honeydew, which can encourage the growth of a black fungus known as sooty mold. In other words, a whitefly infestation can lead to 2 problems at once. The challenge is that whiteflies reproduce quickly in warm conditions and, over time, many populations become resistant to common insecticides. A simple homemade solution is to mix 500 ml, about 2 cups, of water with a small amount of dish soap. Spray the mixture thoroughly over the affected areas, especially the undersides of the leaves. The soapy solution prevents the whiteflies from flying normally and helps control the infestation. With repeated applications and regular watering, they can be eliminated completely from your plants.